Hi, Dr. Alex here, and welcome to what I hope will be an enjoyable series to many people, although it may be of niche interest. Specifically, this series is transcribing the audiobooks of Douglas Adams' The Hitch-hiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Life, the Universe and Everything, and So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, as read by Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore, for those who don't know, is the actor who played Marvin the Paranoid Android on the original radio production of The Hitch-hiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the TV series which followed soon after. This is the genuine Marvin the Paranoid Android, except no substitutes. When the radio series first aired in 1979, I was about 5 years old, and it was then repeated multiple times over several years on Radio 4, where it was first broadcast. My father was an avid fan of Hitch-hikers as soon as it was produced, had the books, which I still have copies of, and listened to the radio series repeatedly, as did I growing up, to the point where I think I overtook my father in terms of my fandom for the series and would insist that we listen to it whenever it was on a Saturday, usually around about lunchtime, and it just had to be on in the background so I could listen to it. Later, in school, having consumed the radio series multiple times and the books, I discovered the audiobooks in the school library, as read by Stephen Moore. And of course, I got these out and listened to them repeatedly as long as I could. Obviously, I had to take them back. They were, after all, library books on tape. Recently, I got to thinking about these books on tape and how enjoyable they were. Being read by Stephen Moore, it had the voice of Marvin the Paranoid Android whenever he read the Marvin lines, and of course, the correct voice for the other characters that he also read in the radio series. And simply as the narrator, he has an excellent reading voice. So I remembered how much I enjoyed those as a child and then thought, I wonder if they're still readily available. As it turns out, they are not. They have never been produced on DVD or online. They only exist in that original tape form, and those tapes themselves are incredibly hard to find, as I discovered as I attempted to dig them out online from various shops and sources. I have now got all but one of the books, and hopefully by the time I get to the last book that Stephen Moore read, I should have all the tapes available. I would like to stress, I do not own the copyright for these tapes. I do not own the copyright for the original material, and I'm recording them in these videos in an effort to preserve them, because they are on magnetic tape. Magnetic tape degrades, and there aren't very many of them left around as far as I can see, and there's been no effort to reproduce these professionally in another format, either online, digitally, or even just on CD. So if you do own the copyright for these, please, by all means, copyright claim these videos as the material is your own, but I would request humbly that you do not block them, just monetize them. My channel isn't monetized, so I'm not going to make money from this anyway, but I would like people, future generations, to be able to access these amazing recordings and enjoy Stephen Moore's work long into the future. Anyway, enough about my motivations for doing this, and now here is Life, the Universe and Everything, Cassette, Side 2.
Another world, another day, another dawn. The early morning's thinnest sliver of light appeared silently. Several billion trillion tons of super-hot exploding hydrogen nuclei rose slowly over the horizon and managed to look small, cold, and slightly damp. There is a moment in every dawn when light floats. There is the possibility of magic. Creation holds its breath. The moment passed as it regularly did on Squarncellus Zeta without incident. The mist clung to the surface of the marshes. The swamp trees were grey with it, the tall reeds indistinct. It hung motionless, like held breath. Nothing moved. There was silence. Nothing moved. Very often on Squarncellus Zeta, whole days would go on like this, and this was indeed going to be one of them. 14 hours later, the sun sank hopelessly beneath the opposite horizon with a sense of totally wasted effort. And a few hours later it reappeared, squared its shoulders, and started on up the sky again. This time, however, something was happening. A mattress had just met a robot.
"Hello, robot." "Bleh. Happy?"
The robot stopped and looked at the mattress. It looked at it quizzically. It was clearly a very stupid mattress. It looked back at him with wide eyes.
"We could have a conversation. Would you like that?"
"No."
My name is Zem. We could discuss the weather a little."
The dew has clearly fallen with a particularly sickening thud this morning.
You have something on your mind, I think.
More than you can possibly imagine. My capacity for mental activity of all kinds is as boundless as the infinite reaches of space itself, except, of course, for my capacity for happiness. My capacity for happiness you could fit into a matchbox without taking out the matches first.
I sense a deep dejectedness in your diodes, and it saddens me. You should be more mattress-like. We live quiet, retired lives in the swamp, where we are content to flollop and volue and regard the wetness in a fairly floopy manner. Some of us are killed, but all of us are called Zem, so we never know which, and globbering is thus kept to a minimum. Why are you walking in circles?
Because my leg is stuck.
It seems to me that it is a pretty poor sort of leg.
You're right. It is.
Voon.
I expect so. And I also expect that you find the idea of a robot with an artificial leg pretty amusing. You should tell your friends Zem and Zem when you see them later. They'll laugh if I know them, which I don't, of course, except insofar as I know all organic life forms, which is much better than I would wish to. Ha! But my life is but a box of worm gears.
He stomped around again in his tiny circle, around his thin steel peg leg which revolved in the mud, but seemed otherwise stuck.
But why do you just keep walking round and round?
Just to make the point.
Consider it made, my dear friend.
I gave a speech once. You may not instantly see why I bring the subject up, but that is because my mind works so phenomenally fast, and I am, at a rough estimate, 30 billion times more intelligent than you. Let me give you an example. Think of a number. Any number.
5.
Wrong. You see?
Tell me of the speech you once made. I long to hear it.
It was received very badly, for a variety of reasons. I delivered it over there, about a mile distance. There, I was a celebrity, for a short while on account of my miraculous and bitterly resented escape from a fate almost as good as death in the heart of a blazing sun. You can guess from my condition how narrow my escape was. I was rescued by a scrap metal merchant. Imagine that. Here I am, brain the size of a... never mind. He it was who fixed me up with this leg. Hateful, isn't it? He sold me to a mind zoo. I was the star exhibit. I had to sit on a box and tell my story whilst people told me to cheer up and think positive. Give us a grin, little robot, they would shout at me. Give us a little chuckle. I would explain to them that to get my face to grin would take a good couple of hours in a workshop with a wrench, and that went down very well.
The speech! I long to hear of the speech you gave in the marshes.
There was a bridge built across the marshes, a cyber-structured hyper-bridge, hundreds of miles in length, to carry eon buggies and freighters over the swamp. It was going to revitalize the economy of the Squarnsheller's system. They spent the entire economy of the Squarnsheller's system building it. They asked me to open it. Poor fools. I stood on the platform, For hundreds of miles in front of me, and hundreds of miles behind me, the bridge stretched.
Did it glitter?
It glittered.
Did it span the miles majestically?
It spanned the miles majestically.
Did it stretch like a silver thread far out into the invisible mist?
Yes. Do you want to hear this story?
I want to hear your speech.
This is what I said. I said, I would like to say that this is a very great pleasure, honor, and privilege for me to open this bridge, but I can't because my lying circuits are all out of commission. I hate and despise you all. I now declare this hapless cyberstructure open to the unthinking abuse of all who wantonly cross her. And I plugged myself into the opening circuits.
Voon! And was it a magnificent occasion?
Reasonably magnificent. The entire 1,000-mile-long bridge spontaneously folded up its glittering spans and sank, weeping into the mire, taking everybody with it.
There was a sad and terrible pause at this point in the conversation, during which 100,000 people seemed unexpectedly to say, "Whop!" and a team of white robots descended from the sky like dandelion seeds drifting on the wind in tight military formation. For a sudden violent moment, they were all there, in the swamp, wrenching Marvin's false leg off, and then they were gone again in their ship, which said, "Whoop!"
You see the sort of thing I have to contend with.
Suddenly, a moment later, the robots were back again for another violent incident, and this time, when they left, the mattress was alone in the swamp. The body of Arthur Dent span. The universe shattered into a million glittering fragments around it, and then the blackness behind the universe exploded, and each particular piece of blackness was the furious smoke of hell. And the nothingness behind the blackness behind the universe erupted, and behind the nothingness behind the blackness behind the shattered universe was at last the dark figure of an immense man speaking immense words.
These, then, were the Cricket Wars, the greatest devastation ever visited upon our galaxy. What you have experienced...
Slarty Bartfast floated past, waving. "It's just a documentary. This is not a good bit. Terribly sorry. Trying to find the rewind control."
...is what billions upon billions of innocent...
"Do not agree to buy anything at this point."
...people, creatures, your fellow beings...
Music swelled. Again. It was immense music, immense chords. And behind the man, slowly, 3 tall pillars began to emerge out of the immensely swirling mist.
Experienced, lived through, or more often failed to live through. Think of that, my friends, and let us not forget. And in just a moment I shall be able to suggest a way which will help us always to remember that before the Cricket Wars, the galaxy was that rare and wonderful thing, a happy galaxy.
The music was going bananas with immensity at this point.
A happy galaxy, my friends, as represented by the symbol of the Wicket Gate.
The 3 pillars stood out clearly now. 3 pillars, topped with 2 crosspieces in a way which looked stupefyingly familiar to Arthur's addled brain.
The 3 pillars, the steel pillar which represented the strength and power of the galaxy.
Searchlights seared out and danced crazy dances up and down the pillar on the left, which was, clearly, made of steel or something very like it.
The Perspex pillar, representing the forces of science and reason in the galaxy. And the wooden pillar, representing the forces of nature and spirituality. Between them supporting the golden bale of prosperity and the silver bale of peace.
The whole structure was now flooded with dazzling lights. At the top of the 3 pillars, the 2 brilliantly gleaming bales sat and dazzled. There seemed to be girls sitting on top of them, Or maybe they were meant to be angels. Angels are usually represented as wearing more than that, though. Suddenly there was a dramatic hush in what was presumably meant to be the cosmos, and a darkening of the lights.
There is not a world, not a civilized world in the galaxy where this symbol is not revered even today. Even in primitive worlds, it persists in racial memories. This it was that the forces of cricket destroyed, and this it is that now locks their world away till the end of eternity.
And with a flourish, the man produced in his hands a model of the wicket gate.
Not the original key, of course. That, as everyone knows, was destroyed, blasted into the ever-whirling eddies of the space-time continuum and lost forever. This is a remarkable replica, hand-tooled by skilled craftsmen, lovingly assembled using ancient craft secrets into a memento you will be proud to own. In memory of those who fell, and in tribute to the galaxy, our galaxy, which they died to defend.
Slarty Bartfast floated past again at this moment. Found it! We can lose all this rubbish. Just don't nod, that's all.
Now let us bow our heads in payment.
Lights came and went, the pillars disappeared, the man gabbled himself backwards into nothing, the universe snappily reassembled itself around them. You get the gist? I'm astonished, said Arthur, and bewildered. I was asleep, said Ford, who floated into view at this point. Did I miss anything? Events were now passing back by them almost too quickly to be distinguished, and when a short while later a huge star battleship rushed away from them as if they'd said boo, they only just recognized it as the point at which they had come in. But now things were too rapid. A video-tactile blur which brushed and jiggled them through centuries of galactic history, turning, twisting, flickering. The sound was a mere thin thrill. Periodically, throughout the thickening jumble of events, they sensed appalling catastrophes, deep horrors, cataclysmic shocks, and these were always associated with certain recurring images, the only images which ever stood out clearly from the avalanche of tumbling history. A wicket gate, a small hard red ball, hard white robots, and also something less distinct, something dark and cloudy. And suddenly it stopped. They were left standing on a quiet hilltop on a tranquil evening. The sun was setting. All around them, softly undulating green countryside rolled off gently into the distance. A little way away could be heard the sound of children playing, and a little further away than the apparent source of that sound could be seen in the dimming evening light the outlines of a small town. The town appeared to consist mostly of fairly low buildings made of white stone. The skyline was of gentle, pleasing curves. The place was peaceful. Arthur felt happy. Even Ford seemed cheerful. They walked a short way in the direction of the town, and the informational illusion of the grass was pleasant and springy under their feet, and the informational illusion of the flowers smelt sweet and fragrant. Only Slarty Bartfast seemed apprehensive and out of sorts. He stopped and looked up. There was nothing in the sky. They're not about to attack here, are they? Nothing is about to attack here. This is where it all starts. This is the place itself. This is cricket. He stared up into the sky. The sky, from one horizon to another, from east to west, from north to south, was utterly and completely black.
Pleased to be of service.
Shut up.
Thank you for making a simple door very happy.
Hope your diodes rot.
Thank you. Have a nice day. It is my pleasure to open for you.
Zark off.
And my satisfaction to close again with the knowledge of a job well done.
I said zark off.
Thank you for listening to this message.
Stump, 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 stump. Whop! Zaphod Beeblebrox stopped stumping. He'd been stumping around the Heart of Gold for days, and so far no door had said whop to him. He was fairly certain that no door had said whop to him now. It sounded as if 100,000 people had said whop, which puzzled him because he was the only person on the ship. The lights were off so that his heads could avoid looking at each other, because neither of them was currently a particularly engaging sight, and nor had they been since he had made the error of looking into his soul. Standing now, silent and alone in the dark corridor, he remembered the moment and shivered. The first shock of that moment, thinking back, had been discovering that he actually had a soul. And then to discover, this was the second shock, that it wasn't the totally wonderful object which he felt a man in his position had a natural right to expect, had jolted him again. Trillian came onto the bridge at that point and said several enthusiastic things on the subject of freedom. "I can't cope with it." "Look," she said in a sympathetic tone of voice, and sat down near him, "it's quite understandable that you're going to feel a little aimless for a bit. You've finished the mission you've been on for years." "I haven't been on it. I've tried to avoid being on it." "You've still finished it." "I think it finished me. Here I am, Zaphod Beeblebrox. I can go anywhere, do anything. I have the greatest ship in the known sky, a girl with whom things seem to be working out pretty well." "Are they?" "As far as I can tell. I'm not an expert in personal relationships." Trillian raised her eyebrows. "I am one hell of a guy. I can do anything I want, only I just don't have the faintest idea what." He paused. "One thing has suddenly ceased to lead to another," in contradiction of which he had another drink and slid gracelessly off his chair. Whilst he slept it off, Trillian flew the ship to Elosumanius Cynica, a world of ice, snow, mind-hurtling beauty, and stunning cold. Zaphod stayed in bed with one head stuck under a pillow and the other doing crosswords till late into the night. Trillian nodded patiently again, counted to a sufficiently high number, and told herself that the important thing now was just to get Zaphod talking. She prepared, by dint of deactivating all the robot kitchen synthematics, the most fabulously delicious meal she could contrive. She carried it through to him and asked if he felt like talking things through. "Zark off!" Trillian nodded patiently to herself, counted to an even higher number, tossed the tray lightly aside, walked to the transport room, and just teleported herself the hell out of his life. She didn't even program any coordinates. She hadn't the faintest idea where she was going. She just went. A random row of dots flowing through the universe. "Anything," she said to herself as she left, "is better than this." "Good job, too," muttered Zaphod to himself, turned over, and failed to go to sleep. The next day he restlessly paced the empty corridors of the ship, pretending not to look for her, though he knew she wasn't there. He ignored the computer's querulous demands to know just what the hell was going on around here by fitting a small electronic gag across a pair of its terminals. It was a few hours later than this, as he stomped disconsolately about the darkened corridors, swearing at cheerful doors, that he heard a whop, and it made him very nervous. He laid his fingertips against the wall and felt an unusual vibration, and now he could quite clearly hear slight noises, and could hear where they were coming from. They were coming from the bridge. Moving his hand along the wall, he came across something he was glad to find. He moved on a little further. "Computer, is there someone on this ship? Who is it? What? Oh, Zarquan. Computer, when I ungag you, remind me to punch myself in the mouth. Either one. Now just tell me this. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Is it dangerous? It is? You didn't just go twice. He inched his way up the corridor as if he would rather be yarding his way down it, which was true. He was within 2 yards of the door to the bridge when he suddenly realized to his horror that it was going to be nice to him, and he stopped dead. He hadn't been able to turn off the door's courtesy voice circuits. "Door, if you can hear me, say so very, very quietly." "I can hear you." "Good. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to open. When you open, I do not want you to say that you enjoyed it. Okay? Okay. And I don't want you to say to me that I have made a simple door very happy, or that it is your pleasure to open for me and your satisfaction to close again with the knowledge of a job well done. Okay? Okay. And I do not want you to ask me to have a nice day. Understand? I understand. Okay. Open now. The door slid open quietly. Zaphod slipped quietly through. The door closed quietly behind him.
Is that the way you like it, Mr. Beeblebrox?
I want you to imagine, said Zaphod to the group of white robots who swung round to stare at him at this point, that I have an extremely powerful Kilozap blaster pistol in my hand. There was an immensely cold and savage silence. The robots regarded him with hideously dead eyes. They stood very still. From their hideously dead eyes to their powerful, lifeless feet, they were clearly the calculated product of a mind that wanted simply to kill. Zaphod gulped in cold fear. They had been dismantling part of the rear bridge wall and had forced a passage towards the very heart of the ship, the heart of the improbability drive that had been so mysteriously created out of thin air, the heart of gold itself. You do have a Kilozap blaster pistol in your hand. Zaphod didn't know what it meant for a moment, but then he glanced down at his own hand and was relieved to see that what he had found clipped to a wall bracket was indeed what he had thought it was. Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to overtax your imagination, robot. I can't help noticing that you have parked your ship through mine, haven't you? Yes, replied the robot. Okay, so, what are you cats doing here? Robots, what are you robots doing here? We have come for the gold of the bale. The gold of the bale is part of the key we seek to release our masters from cricket. The key was disintegrated in time and space. The golden bale is embedded in a device which drives your ship. It will be reconstituted in the key. Our masters shall be released. The universal readjustment will continue. What are you talking about? Obliteration. We seek the key. We already have the wooden pillar, the steel pillar, and the perspex pillar. In a moment we will have the gold bale. No, you won't. We will. No, you won't. It makes my ship work. In a moment, we will have the gold bale. You will not. And then we must go to a party. Oh, can I come? No, we're going to shoot you. Oh, yeah? Yes. And they shot him. Zaphod was so surprised that they had to shoot him again before he fell down. "Shh," said Slartibartfast. "Listen and watch." Night had now fallen on ancient cricket. The sky was dark and empty. The only light was coming from the nearby town, from which pleasant convivial sounds were drifting quietly on the breeze. They stood beneath a tree from which heady fragrances wafted around them. Arthur squatted and felt the informational illusion of the soil and grass. He felt a tap on his shoulder and looked up. Slartibartfast was quietly directing his attention to something down the other side of the hill. He looked and could just see a small group of people who were walking home across the hill towards the town. They walked quite near the watchers beneath the tree, swinging lanterns which made soft and crazy lights dance among the trees and grass, chattering contentedly, and actually singing a song about how terribly nice everything was and how happy they were. Arthur could almost imagine Paul McCartney sitting with his feet up by the fire one evening, humming it to Linda and wondering what to buy with the proceeds, and thinking probably Essex. The Masters of Cricket. What? The Masters of Cricket. Arthur peered at the group and tried to make sense of what little information he had at his disposal at this point. The people in the group were clearly alien, if only because they seemed a little tall, thin, angular, and almost as pale as to be white, but otherwise they appeared remarkably pleasant. Slarty Bartfast interrupted his train of thought at this point.
The game you know as cricket is just one of those curious freaks of racial memory which can keep images alive in the mind aeons after their true significance has been lost in the mists of time. Of all the races in the galaxy, only the English could possibly revive the memory of the most horrific wars ever to sunder the universe, and transform it into what I'm afraid is generally regarded as an incomprehensibly dull and pointless game. Rather fond of it myself, but in most people's eyes you have been inadvertently guilty of the most grotesquely bad taste. Particularly the bit about the little red ball hitting the wicket. That's very nasty. And these are the ones who started it all, and it will start tonight. Come, we will follow and see why.
They slipped out from underneath the tree and followed the cheery party along the dark hill path. Arthur noticed that a couple of members of the party were now singing a different song. It came lilting back to them through the soft night air, and was a sweet, romantic ballad which would have netted Macartney, Kent, and Sussex, and enabled him to put in a fair offer for Hampshire.
You must surely know what it is that is about to happen.
Me? Said Ford. No.
Did you not learn ancient galactic history when you were a child?
I was in the cyber-cubicle behind Zaphod, said Ford. It was very distracting, which isn't to say that I didn't learn some pretty stunning things. At this point, Arthur noticed a curious feature to the song that the party were singing. The Middle Eight Bridge, which would have had Macartney firmly consolidated in Winchester and gazing intently over the Test Valley to the rich pickings of the New Forest beyond, had some curious lyrics. The songwriter was referring to meeting with a girl not under the moon or beneath the stars, but above the grass, which struck Arthur as being a little prosaic. Then he looked up again at the bewilderingly blank sky, and had the distinct feeling that there was an important point here if only he could grasp what it was. It gave him a feeling of being alone in the universe, and he said so.
No, the people of cricket have never thought to themselves, we are alone in the universe. They are surrounded by a huge dust cloud, you see, their single sun with its single world, and they are right out on the utmost eastern edge of the galaxy. Because of the dust cloud, there has never been anything to see in the sky. At night it is totally blank. During the day there is the sun, but you can't look directly at that, so they don't. They are hardly aware of the sky. It's as if they had a blind spot which extended 180 degrees from horizon to horizon. You see, the reason why they have never thought we are alone in the universe is that until tonight they don't know about the universe. Until tonight. Imagine never even thinking we are alone, simply because it has never occurred to you to think that there's any other way to be. I'm afraid this is going to be a little unnerving.
As he spoke, they became aware of a very thin, roaring scream high up in the sightless sky above them. They glanced upwards in alarm, but for a moment or two could see nothing. Then Arthur noticed that the people in the party in front of them had heard the noise, but that none of them seemed to know what to do with it. They were glancing around themselves in consternation, left, right, forward, backwards, even at the ground. It never occurred to them to look upwards. The profoundness of the shock and horror they emanated a few moments later when the burning wreckage of a spaceship came hurtling and screaming out of the sky and crashed about half a mile from where they were standing was something that you had to be there to experience. Some speak of the Heart of Gold in hushed tones, some of the starship Bistro Math. Many speak of the legendary and gigantic starship Titanic, a majestic and luxurious cruise liner launched from the great shipbuilding asteroid complexes of Arcturifactavol some hundreds of years ago now, and with good reason. But whilst these spaceships and other great ones which come to mind, such as the Galactic Fleet battleships, the GSS Daring, the GSS Audacity, and the GSS Suicidal Insanity, are all spoken of with awe, pride, enthusiasm, affection, admiration, regret, jealousy, resentment, in fact, most of the better-known emotions, the one which regularly commands the most actual astonishment was Cricket 1, the first spaceship ever built by the people of Cricket. This is not because it was a wonderful ship. It wasn't. It was a crazy piece of near junk. It looked as if it had been knocked up in somebody's backyard, and this was, in fact, precisely where it had been knocked up. The astonishing thing about the ship was not that it was well done, it wasn't, but that it was done at all. The period of time which had elapsed between the moment that the people of Cricket had discovered that there was such a thing as space, and the launching of this, their first spaceship, was almost exactly a year. Very quickly, therefore, they arrived at the inner perimeter of the hollow, spherical dust cloud which surrounded their sun and home planet, occupying, as it were, the next orbit out. Their historic mission was to find out if there was anything or anywhere on the other side of the sky from which the wrecked spaceship could have come. Another world, maybe. Strange and incomprehensible though this thought was to the enclosed minds of those who had lived beneath the sky of Cricket. History was gathering itself to deliver another blow. The darkness thrummed at them, the blank, enclosing darkness. It seemed closer and closer, thicker and thicker, heavier and heavier, and suddenly it was gone. They flew out of the cloud. They saw the staggering jewels of the night in their infinite dust, and their minds sang with fear. For a while they flew on, motionless against the starry sweep of the galaxy, itself motionless against the infinite sweep of the universe, and then they turned round. "It'll have to go," the men of Cricket said as they headed back for home. On the way back they sang a number of tuneful and reflective songs on the subjects of peace, justice, morality, culture, sport, family life, and the obliteration of all other life forms. "So, you see how it is." "Yes," said Arthur. "Yes," said Ford. "Overnight, the whole population of Cricket was transformed from being charming, delightful, intelligent, if whimsical," interpolated Arthur, "ordinary people, into charming, delightful, intelligent, whimsical, manic xenophobes. The idea of a universe didn't fit into their world picture, so to speak. They simply couldn't cope with it. And so, charmingly, delightfully, intelligently, whimsically, if you like, they decided to destroy it." "Where are we going?" said Ford. "Back to the room of informational illusions, for the second half." His High Judgmental Supremacy, Judiciary Pag, LIVR, the learned, impartial, and very relaxed, chairman of the Board of Judges at the Cricket War Crimes Trial, spoke. "The people of Cricket, well, they're just a bunch of real sweet guys, who just happen to want to kill everybody. Hell, I feel the same way in the morning. Shit. Okay, so you won't necessarily want to share a galaxy with these guys." This was true. The Cricket attack on the galaxy had been stunning. Thousands and thousands of huge Cricket warships had leapt suddenly out of hyperspace and simultaneously attacked thousands and thousands of major worlds, first seizing vital material supplies for building the next wave and then calmly zapping those worlds out of existence. I mean, these guys are just obsessed. Okay, so we won. But that's no big deal. I mean, a medium-sized galaxy against one little world, and how long did it take us? Clerk of the court? "My lord." "How long, kiddo?" "It is a trifle difficult, my lord, to be precise in this matter. Time and distance. Relax, Guy. Be vague. I hardly like to be vague, my lord, over such a bite the bullet and be it." The clerk of the court blinked at him. It was clear that, like most of the galactic legal profession, he had found Judiciary Pag, or Zippo Bebrock 5 times 10 to the power of 8, as his private name was known, inexplicably to be a rather distressing figure. He was clearly a bounder and a cad. He seemed to think that the fact that he was the possessor of the finest legal mind ever discovered gave him the right to behave exactly as he liked, and unfortunately he appeared to be right.
Well, my lord, very approximately 2,000 years.
And how many guys zilched out?
2 grillion, my lord.
That's a whole lot of stiffs. Judiciary Pag gazed once more around the courtroom, wherein were assembled hundreds of the very highest officials of the entire galactic administration, all in their ceremonial uniforms or bodies depending on metabolism and custom. Behind a wall of zap-proof crystal stood a representative group of the people of Cricket, looking with calm, polite loathing at all the aliens gathered to pass judgment on them. This was the most momentous occasion in legal history, and Judiciary Pag knew it.
So like I said, these are a bunch of really sweet guys, but you wouldn't want to share a galaxy with them, not if they're just gonna keep at it. Not if they're not gonna learn to relax a little. I mean, it's just gonna be continual nervous time, isn't it, right? Pow, 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 when are they next coming at us? Peaceful coexistence is just right out, right? Get me some water, somebody, thank you. Okay, hear me. It's like these guys, are entitled to their own view of the universe. And according to their view, which the universe forced on them, right? They did right. Sounds crazy, but I think you'll agree. They believe in peace, justice, morality, culture, sport, family life, and the obliteration of all other life forms. I've heard a lot worse.
He scratched his crotch reflectively. He took another sip of water, then held it up to the light and frowned at it. Hey, is there something in this water?
No, my lord.
Then take it away and put something in it. I got an idea. Hear me. The solution was brilliant and went like this. The planet of Cricket was to be encased for perpetuity in an envelope of slow time, inside which life would continue almost infinitely slowly. All light would be deflected round the envelope so that it would remain invisible and impenetrable. Escape from the envelope would be utterly impossible unless it were unlocked from the outside. When the rest of the universe came to its final end, when the whole of creation reached its dying fall, this was all, of course, in the days before it was known that the end of the universe would be a spectacular catering venture, and life and matter ceased to exist, then the planet of Cricket and its sun would emerge from its slow-time envelope and continue a solitary existence such as it craved in the twilight of the universal void. The lock would be on an asteroid which would slowly orbit the envelope. The key would be the symbol of the galaxy, the Wicket Gate. By the time the applause in the court had died down, Judiciary Pag was already in the censor shower with a rather nice member of the jury that he'd slipped a note to half an hour earlier. 2 months later, Zippo Bebrock 5 times 10 to the power of 8 had cut the bottoms off his galactic state jeans and was spending part of the enormous fee his judgments commanded lying on a jewelled beach having essence of qualectin rubbed into his back by the same rather nice member of the jury. She was a Sulfenian girl from beyond the cloud worlds of Yaga. She had skin like lemon silk and was very interested in legal bodies. "Did you hear the news?" she said.
No.
"Your Cricket judgment was carried out today. I heard it on the radio when I went back to the ship for the oil."
Uh-huh.
"Something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Just after the slow-time envelope was locked, a Cricket warship, which had been missing, presumed destroyed, turned out to be just missing after all. It appeared and tried to seize the key." "Hey, what?" "It's all right. Apparently there was a short battle. The key and the warship were disintegrated and blasted into the space-time continuum. Apparently they are lost forever." She smiled and ran a little more essence of qualectin onto her fingertips. He relaxed and lay back down.
"Do what you did a moment or two ago."
"That?"
No, that."
She tried again. "That?"
"We'll love."
You had to be there.
Nothing is lost forever, except for the Cathedral of Kalism.
"The what?" said Arthur with a start. "The Cathedral of Calism," repeated Slartibartfast. "It was during the course of my researches at the Campaign for Real Time that I—" "The what?" said Arthur again. "Look, where are we going?" said Ford, pushing his chair back from the table with impatience, "because I'm eager to get there." "We are going to try to prevent the war robots of Cricket from regaining the whole of the key they need to unlock the planet of Cricket from the slow time envelope and release the rest of their army and their mad masters." "It's just," said Ford, "that you mentioned a party." "I did," said Slartibartfast, and hung his head. "When," said Ford eagerly, "do we get there?" "When I've finished telling you why we have to go there. Listen, at Camtim—" "What?" said Arthur. "The Campaign for Real Time. I noticed that 5 pieces of jetsam which had in relatively recent times plopped back into existence seemed to correspond to the 5 pieces of the missing key. Only 2 I could trace exactly, the wooden pillar, which appeared on your planet, and the silver bale. It seems to be at some sort of party. We must go there to retrieve it before the Cricket robots find it, or who knows what mayhap." "No," said Ford firmly, "we must go to the party in order to drink a lot and dance with girls." "Let's just go down to the party, for whatever reason." He stood up, shaking his head. For some unexplained reason, the teleport cubicles were in the bathroom.